I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. It started at a corner table near the window of a bookstore café. One of those places with too many mismatched chairs and a record player that skipped if you breathed too hard near it. I usually sat with my laptop open, pretending to write, mostly watching the street. She came in every Thursday around 3 p.m., like clockwork. Always with a blue thermos and a paperback, sometimes with her reading glasses tangled in her hair like she'd forgotten they were there. I think the first time we spoke was over a plug socket. "Mind if I?" she asked, gesturing toward the wall near my table. I moved my bag without looking up too much. "Yeah, of course. Go ahead." She gave a small nod and plugged in her phone. I noticed the way her hands moved, not rushed, but precise. A little worn at the knuckles, like they'd done more than type emails all their life. For a while, we just existed near each other. She'd sit across the room, and I'd find myself timing breaks around when she looked up from her book. I caught her smile once when a toddler waddled past in a dinosaur hoodie. I smiled too, but she didn't see. The second conversation came weeks later, when she pointed to the drink I always got. "Hazelnut, right?" she said. I nodded. "Yeah. You always stir it 3 times before sipping. Habit." I blinked. I guess. I didn't know I did that." She smiled, half apologetic. "Sorry. I noticed things. Occupational hazard." I wanted to ask what her occupation was, but I didn't. Instead, I made a dumb joke about it being better than a surveillance camera. She laughed, actually laughed, and something about the way her eyes softened made me fold my napkin in half, then again until it was just a neat little square. From then on, it was occasional comments. Observations. She once said my sneakers were always too clean for a writer. I told her she read too fast to enjoy anything. Small stuff, but it felt known. Like we were speaking underneath the words. She never asked my age, but I knew she knew. I didn't ask hers either, though I'd already guessed mid-40s. She had that quiet poise older women carry. Like they've already lived through the phase you're still fumbling in. It never felt like a gap. Just different rhythms. There was this one Thursday I came in late. Rain still on my shoulders. She was already there, reading. When she looked up and saw me, her mouth opened like she was about to say something, then just closed again. Instead, she nudged her thermos toward me. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, but I wasn't. I had a fight with my brother the night before. Something stupid. I drafted a text 6 times. Never sent it. My phone was still in my pocket, screen face down. Saturday, yeah. Just long day. She gave me that look again. Not pity, just patience. Like she could wait me out. We didn't talk much that afternoon. But when she left, she paused at the door, hesitated, then turned back. "You know," she said, adjusting the strap of her bag, "you're different from the men my age, in all the right ways." Then she walked out, just like that. No smile, no wink, just a statement, like weather. That night, around 1:12 a.m., I got a text. I didn't recognize the number. It said, "Next Thursday, same place," and underneath it, "I'll bring 2 thermoses." She did bring 2 thermoses. One was hers, the same dented blue one, a sticker peeling at the corner. The other was newer, silver, still shiny. She slid it across the table like it was nothing. "Thought you might want to try the tea I always drink," she said. "Cinnamon and clove. It's a little strange." I took it. Didn't drink it right away. She was wearing a wool coat this time, and her scarf was tucked messily, like she'd rushed. A part of me wanted to ask what delayed her. Another part didn't want to seem like I'd been watching the door the whole time. We didn't speak much at first. The kind of silence where you're both thinking about talking, but neither moves first. Then, somewhere between the second sip and the clock ticking past 4, she said, "My daughter's your age. 22. I looked up too quickly. She wasn't smiling. "She lives in Vancouver now. Art school. Haven't seen her since Christmas." I nodded. "You miss her?" "Every day," she said, then added, But I think she's relieved I'm not hovering anymore. Something tightened in me, but I didn't know why. I stirred my tea, didn't know what to say. She glanced at my hands. You always fidget when something hits too close. I froze, then laughed, but it came out small. I don't know what I'm doing, I said finally, meaning more than the moment allowed. She looked at me long then, like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure if she had permission. Instead, she shifted in her chair, reached into her bag, and pulled out a wrinkled receipt. I keep meaning to throw this away, she said. It's from the first day we talked. Plug socket day. You kept it. I keep strange things. A pause. Little things that make me feel less forgettable. I didn't respond. I just looked at the receipt, now a faded ghost of a transaction, like the moment itself had left behind proof it happened. There was a heaviness in the air now. Not bad, just real. I thought of my brother again. Still no reply. I thought about how I'd stopped talking to my ex months before the actual breakup. Thought about how most people just drift and call it timing. She leaned back. You ever feel like you're just visiting your own life? I nodded. All the time. Outside, the streetlights flickered on too early. Inside, someone played Joni Mitchell on the record player, and the crackle in the speaker made it sound like a memory. When she stood to leave, I did too. She reached out. Not quite a hug, not quite nothing, and rested her hand lightly on my arm, just above the wrist. You're easy to be around, she said. I smiled, looked at her hand, then at her. You are too. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. We didn't meet the following Thursday, or the one after. She texted, busy week, catch up soon. Then nothing. I tried not to overthink it, told myself she was probably just living. People had full lives, deadlines, friends, people their age. Still, the cafe felt hollow without her. I sat in our usual corner anyway, brought my laptop but didn't type. Just sipped coffee and kept folding napkins. On the third Thursday, she walked in. Later than usual. Different coat. Hair up but loosely, like she'd undone it in the car and retied it in a rush. I looked up too fast. She didn't smile right away. Didn't think you'd still come, she said. I shrugged. I wasn't sure you would. She sat, not across from me, beside, close enough that our elbows brushed when I shifted my mug. Neither of us moved away. I've been avoiding this, she said softly. This, whatever it is we're doing. I laughed, but it came out dry. We're not doing anything. Exactly. She traced the rim of her thermos with her finger. And still, it feels like something. The silence that followed felt louder than any answer I could have given. I noticed the way she kept her hands busy, the way she didn't look at me when she spoke. Then, as if the universe was done being subtle, Sarah walked in. Sarah, my friend from uni. The one who once asked if I had a thing for older women after I complimented our professor's handwriting. She spotted me before I could turn away. Hey, she called out, approaching. Didn't expect to see you here. I stood up too quickly. Yeah, just coffee. Her eyes shifted to the woman beside me. A flicker of recognition, or suspicion. Hi, Sarah said politely. This is... I began. But I didn't know how to finish. Not friend. Not colleague. Nothing fit. The woman stood too, offering a light smile. I should go, she said. Deadlines don't wait. And just like that, she was gone. Not hurried. Just precise. Like she'd rehearsed the exit. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Was that? Just someone I see here sometimes? I said too quickly. She didn't press. But I could feel the question hanging in the air as she walked off to order. I didn't stay long after that. Later that night, I texted her, sorry about today. Didn't expect anyone to show up. Then, you okay? No reply. It wasn't until 2 days later that I found her waiting outside the cafe. Arms crossed, jacket half-buttoned. You don't owe me explanations, she said before I could speak. I nodded. Still, I didn't like how that felt. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was weighing something. "We can't pretend this is harmless," she said quietly. "People notice." I stepped closer. "Do you want to stop?" She didn't answer, just looked at my mouth, then away. Her breath caught. I almost touched her face. Almost. But she stepped back first. Not far. Just enough. And then, almost as a whisper, "I don't know what I want. Ask ChatGPT." We took a walk. Not planned. We'd bumped into each other outside the bookstore on a gray afternoon that smelled like coming rain. She had an umbrella. I didn't. We ended up under it together, walking slowly down streets that didn't matter. She held the handle loosely. Our hands kept brushing. It was quiet, except for our steps and the soft slap of water against pavement. At one point, I said something, I don't even remember what. Something dumb about how early the leaves had started falling. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She hadn't been herself lately. Quieter. Pulled in. "I saw you with someone," she said suddenly. Took me a second. "When?" "Last weekend. At the diner on 6th. The girl with the plaid scarf." I blinked. "Oh, that was Sarah. Just a friend." She nodded too quickly. "Of course." We walked a few more steps. She adjusted the umbrella. Then, "You looked easy with her." I stopped walking. Not sure why. "What do you mean?" She paused too, but didn't look at me. "I don't know. Just like you didn't have to hold anything back." That landed harder than it should have. "You think I hold back with you?" She didn't answer right away. "I think we both do." The rain picked up. She tightened her grip on the umbrella. Her coat was starting to soak at the shoulders. "I'm not used to this," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "This kind of closeness. With someone who doesn't come with expectations yet." The word "yet" sat between us like a loaded string. I took a breath. "You make me feel like I'm not pretending." She looked down at her shoes. "I've spent years curating myself," she said. "For my ex. For my daughter. For men who don't ask questions. But with you," a pause, "I find myself saying things I didn't plan to say." We were at a bench now, barely covered by a tree. She sat down, umbrella propped against her knee, rain slipping down her collar. I sat beside her. "I hate how much space you take up in my head," she whispered. "It makes no sense." "You're younger," I said. "Not serious enough?" "No," she said sharply. Then softer. "Just, you could still walk away untouched, and I wouldn't know what to do with that." The silence after was too full. I reached out not to touch her, just to place my hand on the bench between us. "Open." She looked at it for a long time. Then her fingers moved, slow, hesitant, resting just barely over mine. Skin to skin. Barely. Everything in me leaned toward her. She didn't pull away. Not this time. But she didn't lean in either. Her eyes met mine. Steady, unreadable. And then she asked, voice barely there, "What are we doing?" She stopped coming. No message. No slow fade. Just gone. The next Thursday I showed up early. Stayed too long. Left when they turned the chairs over. The Thursday after that I didn't bring my laptop. Just sat with the tea she used to bring. Now ordered from the barista who didn't know the story. Still no sign of her. I didn't text. Not because I didn't want to, because I'd drafted 7 versions in my notes app already. None of them sounded like me. None of them sounded like her. The 8th draft stayed half-written. Did I misread everything? I never sent it. By the 3rd week, I gave in and walked by the café where I first saw her reading alone. The one she mentioned she used to go to before it got too bright and full of laptops. She wasn't there either. But someone else was. A tall man, mid-50s maybe, familiar in the way strangers sometimes are. I only noticed him because he had her blue thermos. The dented one. He held it with both hands like it meant something. I didn't go in. Just watched for a moment through the glass, wondering how many stories I didn't know about her. That night I did something stupid. I searched her full name. Found her through an old art exhibit link. There was a photo, and under personal life, a line I hadn't expected. She lives in the city with her husband and a rescue dog named Linus. Husband. The word didn't even hurt. Not right away. Just rewrote everything. The receipt. The walk. Her hand on mine. That whispered, "What are we doing?" I sat on the floor of my apartment, staring at my phone like it would blink first. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't cry either. Just stared at the ceiling. Replaying everything, wondering if I'd made it all up. If I'd imagined the way she lingered near me, or how her voice dipped whenever we got too close to honesty. And still, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next morning, I walked past the café. Didn't go in. There was a woman sitting in our old spot. Younger, bright lipstick, laughing loudly into her phone. She looked nothing like her. I kept walking. Half a block down, I opened my messages again. Drafted one more note. I saw someone with your thermos. Just wondering if... Deleted it before I could finish. I thought about turning back. Waiting. Sitting in case she showed up late. But instead I kept walking. Past our street. Past our bench. Past the bookstore. The seat stayed empty. And so did I. It was raining again. Not the kind that storms, the kind that hangs like background noise, polite and persistent. She knocked on my door just after 8. No text. No warning. Just her, in the same coat from that day on the bench, hair a little wet around the edges, holding the silver thermos. I didn't say anything at first. Just stepped aside so she could come in. She didn't sit. Didn't smile. Just stood near the bookshelf, looking around like everything had shifted slightly since she'd last been in this space. She wasn't wrong. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. I nodded, not because I forgave her yet, but because I wanted to hear more. "I needed space to think," she said, "and I didn't think I owed you an explanation." I waited. She looked down at the thermos, her fingers tightening around it. "He's not my husband," she said finally. "Not anymore. We divorced 2 years ago. We just haven't changed the bios. Or the habits." I exhaled something I didn't realize I'd been holding, but I still didn't move. "And the thermos?" I asked. She smiled, barely. "He borrowed it. Left mine at his place once when we exchanged the dog. That's all." It was strange, how relief could feel so close to shame. How I wanted to apologize and still be angry at the same time. "I thought you disappeared because you regretted all of it," I said. She shook her head. "No. I disappeared because I didn't know how not to regret it." She stepped closer. Not enough to close the space. Just enough to be heard without raising her voice. "You're right there," she said, eyes on mine. "And every part of me wants to be near that. But I'm also terrified I've already taken too much from you." "You haven't," I said too quickly. Then softer. "You really haven't." She looked away, breathing through her nose, hands fidgeting at the base of the thermos now. "People don't talk about what it costs to be seen like that, to want like that." "I do," I said. "I talk to myself about it all the time." We both laughed, just once, short, tired, real. And then it got quiet again. The kind of quiet that doesn't beg to be filled. She finally set the thermos down on the table, took off her coat, looked up. "I don't know where this goes," she said. "Me neither. But I'm here." I stepped forward, not to kiss her, not to claim anything, just to be there. Our arms brushed. Her hand found mine. No theatrics, no trembling, just skin, just stillness. And then she looked at me, really looked, and said, with the smallest smile, "Okay." We didn't fall into each other. We settled in, like tea left to steep, quiet, patient, stronger with time. Thursday afternoons stayed ours, though the café eventually switched owners and started playing louder music. We didn't mind. We just brought our own thermoses and sat by the window, the same corner table, the one with the bad plug socket that never got fixed. She still wore her coat half-buttoned, scarf always slightly wrong. I never fixed it, just liked noticing. Some weeks we barely talked. She read. I typed. Occasionally we'd pass each other a note on a napkin, a half-thought or a question too soft to say aloud. Once, she wrote, "What would your 22-year-old self think of this?" I wrote back, "He'd be quiet for once." Other routines found us. Saturday mornings, she'd make cinnamon clove tea. I'd brew black coffee anyway out of habit. She never drank it, just liked the smell. We walked Linus together, rain or not, always stopping at the bench near the bookstore. Sometimes we sat, sometimes we didn't, but we always passed it like a punctuation mark. She never pushed for labels. I never asked for promises. Instead, we collected moments. Her daughter came to visit once. I stayed out of the way. But later, I found a note left on the counter, written in her handwriting. "She's sharp. She'll figure it out." I'm okay with that. Some days still felt like borrowed time. She'd get quiet in the evenings, stare off mid-sentence like remembering something heavy. I didn't always ask. But when I did, she never pretended. That mattered. I once told her I wasn't afraid of growing older, just afraid of forgetting what this felt like. She smiled, pressed her hand to my chest and said, "Then don't let yourself become too safe." We never took a photo together. Not because we didn't want to, because it didn't feel necessary. We already had everything captured. In the way she stirred her tea 3 times like I used to with my coffee, or how she'd wait at 8:47 a.m. outside the café, knowing I was always 2 minutes late. One evening, as we sat side by side on the bench, early fall, leaves making soft confetti on the pavement, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the same old receipt from the plug socket day. Faded now, torn at the edge. "I almost threw it out last week," she said. "Why didn't you?" She looked over at me, smile barely there. "Because you still look at me like you did then. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to." The wind blew, the light changed, and somewhere behind us, a street lamp buzzed awake. And in that moment, no music, no perfect words. I understood. We never needed a beginning or an ending. We just needed a place to stay. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?